Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We're going to start turning on our cameras here so you guys can see our lovely faces. Dialed in today to hear a conversation between myself and a couple of our Right at Home franchise owners. We'll get to introductions here in a little bit, but I just wanted to cover some housekeeping items here for those of you who are attending this webinar live. You do have the opportunity to ask a question anytime throughout the course of the next hour. I have the Q&A box open on my screen here, so I will be able to see all of the questions that come in. So if you hover near the bottom of the screen, there's a Q&A button. Don't be shy. Go ahead and type a question into that box anytime throughout the course of this webinar, because I won't wait until the very end to get the questions answered. We'll make sure that they're answered live as we go. Okay. So just want to introduce you to a couple of individuals here. And first of all, to just kind of set the stage here about what we're going to talk about here over the course of the next hour. You have joined us because you're interested in possibly wanting to become a Right at Home franchise owner. Whether you are active in our pipeline right now, visiting with Chuck or Trevor. Both of them are our sales directors here, and they're going to introduce themselves here in a little bit. Or perhaps you're listening and you've never inquired about Right at Home franchise opportunities before. So you're in the right place. Over the course of the next hour, I'm hopeful that you're going to hear some great nuggets from Beau and Meghan, our franchise owners. I have a few questions that we're going to go over, but it's going to be more so of a conversation between the three of us versus just here's the question and then here's the answer. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to have Chuck and Trevor turn on their cameras here so they can introduce themselves. So in the event that you inquire with Right at Home, you will be visiting with either Trevor Steenholdt or Chuck Prentner. Chuck and Trevor are our development directors here at Right at Home. So Chuck, I'll have you go first.
Well, thank you very much, Jen. My name is Chuck Prentner. I love what I do. I talk to people about getting involved with, I think, is one of the best opportunities in their life, both monetarily and spiritually. I've been in franchise development for 35 plus years, and the quality of people and their belief in the mission that we do absolutely blows me away. I look forward to talking to people and guiding them through this process simply to see if it's the right match for them.
Thanks, Chuck. Go ahead, Trevor.
Yeah, I do the same thing Chuck does, and I echo the exact same sentiments. It's so great working with people that are looking to take the next step in their life and grab the bull by the horns and take control of their future. And I think this is a great system to do that with. There's a lot of opportunity out there, and just so rewarding being part of this mission here at Right at Home. And the work that we do is very important out there. And I'm glad that for those that are listening to this and that are participating, that they're entertaining and getting into this specific space.
Thanks, Trevor. And my name's Jen Chaney. I'm the Vice President of Franchise Development for Right at Home. I will be your host for this webinar today. So without further ado, I'm going to have Beau and Meghan introduce themselves. Beau and Meghan are active franchise owners with Right at Home. And we'll, bye Trevor, bye Chuck. And we will go ahead and start with Beau.
Okay, my name is Beau Green. I am located in Alabama. I opened our office, it'll be 10 years in the fall. I started the business when I was 30 years old. I'm now 39. So operate a couple different locations, about 5 different offices, all in Alabama currently.
Perfect.
Hi, I am Meghan Scott. I'm the owner and operator of Right at Home of Essex County, New Jersey. We've been family owned and operated for almost 17 years now, and I've been acting as owner for the last 4 years.
Okay, thanks guys. And I want to start kind of more on a personal level. So Beau, if you would just take a moment to kind of describe your family makeup and your professional background.
Yeah, so family makeup, married. I've got a 9-year-old son that was born 2 months after I opened the business. I have a 6-year-old daughter and a 3-year-old daughter, and they're awesome. It's motivation every day to work harder and make a difference in the lives of others. Professionally, I did not grow up in this market. I was 5 or 6 hours away where I grew up, but finished college here in Alabama and sold steel in the United States, Canada, and Mexico. Did a fair amount of travel. I was the face of a technology company uh, and did a lot of travel with that. And then I started my own technology company for a short period that was not successful. So after that failed venture, then I landed on a right at home franchise. So I did some research for a while. I eventually landed on this space and identified, maybe 6, 8, 10, 12 franchise systems that I thought I could align with. And then after talking to them, what areas were available, what weren't available, just all the different dynamics that come into play. I arrived that the best fit for me is a right at home franchise. And so, just as quickly as I can put it, that's kind of what led me to this. And I'm grateful to be here today.
Perfect. Thank you. Go ahead, Megan.
Okay, so I am married. I have a son. He's 2.5 years old. His name is actually Micah, just like the Micah from corporate who helped to organize this call today. He's absolutely wonderful. So my background was actually in PR and marketing. So prior to taking over as the owner of our location, I was working for a PR agency doing consumer food and beverage. I also do have a master's in nutrition, which I use to bring into my PR career. So I was doing something completely different. I was on the grind. I was commuting 2 hours a day into New York City. And then kind of this opportunity arose for me to take over the family business and keep things going. So that's what I decided to do.
Okay. And then, Megan, maybe you can kind of continue here. So when you took over the business, could you identify, that moment when you, officially took over the business? What's the maybe, top 3 things that you wanted to accomplish? Or maybe it's just one immediate accomplishment. You're like, now that I'm a right at home franchise owner, I'm hoping to accomplish X.
Yeah, so when I jumped in, I definitely had some very clear goals in mind. I mean, knowing how important this business was to my dad, I wanted to continue to serve the clients that he had brought in over the years. And I also wanted to keep the caregivers employed because he had this amazing staff of caregivers who'd been working for him for so long. And I mean, this is their livelihood. They relied on him. They relied on Right at Home of Essex County to make their money. And to me, that was like, way up there. I'm like, let's keep these people working. I want them to be able to pay their bills and do a job that they love. So those are my 2 biggest goals: keep everyone safe, happy, and healthy, and keep money in the pockets of my caregivers.
Very good. How about you, Beau?
Yeah, I mean, just to be very honest, it was to provide for, my wife and my family. And, obviously I want to make a fair living, an honest living. I want to take care of the people that work for us. I saw my own family in a number of different family businesses that they had over the years. And I saw some of that loyalty that Megan just spoke of, employees, it's a 2-way street. They may have a loyalty to you, but an employer being loyal to the employees. There are definitely times that they need us, and there are times that we need them. And so being able to be there, those are very rich relationships. And then also making a difference in the community as a whole. There are already good providers. There are already providers that were very well established in big offices in some of the locations that we're in. So it was, how do we differentiate ourselves? It was, how do we meet the bar that's already been set? And then how can we exceed that current bar? How do we go north of that? And so, I was 0 clients, 0 employees, a hope and a prayer and a dream when I started this business. And 9.5 years later, there's a lot to be thankful for.
So speaking of, to give our listeners some perspective, offices of all different sizes, franchise owners that have, different makeup of business. So can you give our listeners a perspective, current size of business? So approximate number of hours, caregivers, office staff.
Megan, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. So last week we did about 2,500 hours. So right now we have about like 80 to 100 active caregivers. I run a pretty tight ship, a small office. I handle the day-to-day operations. My mom does the financials. We have a scheduling coordinator, maybe 2 to 3 admins in the office. We have a part-time marketing person and about like 4 per diem nurses. So I would say really there's a team of like 10 of us who make it happen day to day.
Perfect.
My answer is a little more complicated.
Yes.
Birmingham, it'll be 10 years old in the fall. And so we have 4 full-time schedulers in that office. We do have an agency director. We have a recruiter. We have a marketer. We have a nurse, a payroll associate that helps with kind of accounting in general. And in Huntsville, it'll be 8 years at the end of this year. It has 4 schedulers in their main Huntsville office. It has an agency director. It has a full-time marketer. It has a full-time recruiter. In another North Alabama office, 45 minutes away from Huntsville, I have 3 schedulers and kind of a part-time marketer there. We have a director of nursing there. And then I have a Tuscaloosa office that's 45 minutes, 50 minutes from the Birmingham location. It has currently 2 full-time schedulers and a part-time marketer. So I'll kind of use those as the 4 main offices right now. Each one it ranges in terms of the billable hours. And it's based on where the business is. And so really, I would prefer to say based on the size of the office staff, that dictates you should be able to figure out about what hours we're doing. So I'll just kind of leave it at that.
Sure. Okay. So that's a good segue into my next question. So can you describe to our listeners kind of what your role is? Megan kind of touched on this a little bit herself, and I do have an additional question for her. But Beau, can you kind of explain to our listeners what your role is when you first started in this business versus what the role that you play, just a day in the life of Beau Green? What does that look like today versus when you first started?
Yeah. So initially, I described myself as 3 words: market, market, market. So when I opened the business in 2011, it was go market the business, go get the business, go figure it out, go find, because my entire business is private pay. There's no state money. There's no Medicaid waiver. There's no Medicare money. There's nothing magical. It's literally private pay money. And so it was find the people that can afford to pay. Go find them. Go find referral sources and align yourself with people that can refer to you, that trust you. So it was market, 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 market for probably the first 5 or 6 years. And then there was a slight shift into market and recruit. And the market and recruit was still about 60% market, 40% recruit. And as that continued to pivot or change, I spend about 80% of my time in some capacity in a recruitment role. So I work alongside our recruiters. I'm kind of some of the tech hands behind the scenes that helps with a number of the different ways that we open up our funnels and we try to find people to hire. So I've taken that same energy that was go find the clients that can pay, and it is go find incredible people that can provide the services. Part of that is because we are established in our areas and we do have great volume. Just in the first 4.5 hours today, we have 4 new referrals today in one office. That doesn't include any of the other offices. So in Birmingham alone, we had 4 new clients that need to start within the next week or less, probably before this weekend. So that gives you an idea. And I already had a home assessment I did. So that's technically 5 before noon today. So high volume business, it could be a short-term solution for a lot of families, or it can be a long-term solution for families, but private pay business. My role is to help lead leaders. So we've empowered other people to make decisions. And we have incredible office teams, probably similar to Meghan's and what her family has established there. I have people that have been with me in the office 8 years, 7 years, 6 years, and 5 years. So I visited 25 offices in the Right at Home system or more. And I would say the majority of them are in the president's circle, or the top 10% roughly in the space. And what I found is office staff is what makes the difference in what most franchisees define as helping them meet their needs to be successful.
Awesome. Thank you. How about you, Meghan?
Yeah, I mean, sorry, what was that?
So my question to you is, kind of you already explained a little bit of what your role is on a day-to-day basis. Maybe just explain now versus then, when you first became a franchise owner, what you did when you initially started versus what you do on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, absolutely. So fundamentally, my role has been the same, but I think one of the things that was a goal for me when I did come on was to try to hire some more office staff to support some of these operations, because my dad really did not have those systems in place, and he didn't have, that team around him to support what he was doing. So that was a goal of mine. I knew I couldn't just do it all on my own. So, what Beau is talking about office staff being so
Meghan, you are muted. Beau, can you hear her?
I cannot.
Okay.
There you go.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yep.
We can.
Okay. Sorry about that. I'm on my cell phone and someone called me, of course. So yeah, my role has always kind of been pretty similar, like overseeing the day-to-day operations. I do like to take in new clients and support any marketing efforts. I do the marketing on my own, or I do have a part-time marketer, but I found it's more effective to just get out there myself and get those referrals. So I think, the biggest change is that some of the small things I've been able to delegate, but I do still continue to do those same day-to-day items of, the operations, new clients, and marketing that I did before. So some changes, some not.
Okay, so you already answered one of the questions that I wanted to make sure to cover, which was office staff and how often you really rely on your office staff and how much they support you as a franchise owner. So both of you have already covered that, so I appreciate that. So I want to kind of shift gears a little bit, and both this is something that you mentioned, but how do you collaborate with fellow franchise owners, other right-at-home franchisees? What are some of the things that the relationships you have with other franchise owners, and some of the things that really help you in your business, building those relationships with fellow franchisees?
Sure. As you become tenured, you have an opportunity to participate in performance groups. And some of those are new starts, and some of those are an existing group. They're called different things in different systems or different businesses, but this is a group of right-at-home owners, not necessarily from the same state or necessarily from the same region, but you join a performance group and, you roll everything out. You leave nothing off the table. You disclose what you take out of the business. You disclose what you pay caregivers, office staff. You disclose goals that you might have. It might be helping an owner prepare to sell. It might be helping an owner pay down debt against the business. It might be just making them more money. They may have a wedding to pay for. They may have college on the horizon for kids. Everybody's different. And so our performance group, I think I'm the youngest at 39 and the oldest is probably 69. And we're in different stages of life. And we really have incredible communication almost daily. So today is our facilitator's birthday. So we have a never ending group text. And I'm just like, hey guys, join me in wishing and I mentioned my performance group person's name, and I said, "It's your birthday." Well, within a few minutes, then it was, "Hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about that?" It's always a back and forth, and it's a never-ending text thread, which on one end can drive people crazy. But when you need a quick answer, I asked a question about 5 or 6 weeks ago, and I had an issue I needed help with. I needed to bounce it off another owner quickly. So I presented the situation in about 3 or 4 sentences, and I said, "Who has 5 minutes to talk about this with me?" And within 60 seconds, I had 2 owners that reached out and said, "I've got 5 minutes. I've got 5 minutes." So I was able to kick off this situation with them. Within 20 minutes, I was off the phone with both of them, and I was confirmed the path that I needed to go in this instance. Where otherwise, it might be hard to really talk about that situation. So the performance group is very important to me. There is a facilitator, corporate representative that participates. They function as a lot of different capacity to keep you on task. We set our own agendas. We get together twice a year, face to face. We do 2 conference calls. So it's like 4 meetings per year, 2 face to face, 2 telephone. Like I said, we set our own agenda, and our facilitator keeps us the train on the tracks. If we get off the tracks, it's, "Hey, is this important? Do you want to punt the next topic or go into that time? Or do you want to put this in the parking lot and visit it later?" It's best practices. It's burning issues. So the performance group is great, but it also keeps us in the loop with maybe corporate's perspective on a particular issue, stance, topic, whatever. So that is a really strong, but also your relationship with your business performance coach is very important for them to understand your business. And I think I'm a former athlete, and I have that mentality. So I always point back to a scouting report. You need to know your market. You need to know your own scouting report. What do other people say about you? What do people think about you? And then you need to be able to present your scouting report to your business performance coach and say, "This is what I know about me. And this is what I know my strengths, and this is what I know my weaknesses are." And so basically it comes down to communication. So if they say in real estate, the 3 most important things are location, 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 I stress in orientation. I stress with our office staff. I stress with everybody. It's communication, communication, communication. I believe that's what wins. So I'll shut up and let Megan talk.
So I've actually heard some great things about performance groups too. Unfortunately, I am not a part of one at this point, but it's certainly something I will continue to consider, especially after what Beau is talking about. But I just say my collaboration with other right-at-home franchises is really more on like a local level. Here in New Jersey, we all kind of work together quite a bit because I only own one territory. That means my territory is touching, 2 others. So I often get phone calls that have to be redirected to the proper location. I might, shoot them a text and say, "Hey, this referral is coming to you," or, "Hey, can you call this person?" So we are always working together in that capacity. Sometimes too, I might work with a care manager or a hospital discharger who also has to work in other counties. And I want them to refer to Right at Home. So I give them their information. I say, "Hey, why don't you start this relationship? Let's see if we can all work together kind of collectively as a state." So I definitely say that my collaboration with other, Right at Home franchisees is a lot with just like the day-to-day local things. And we're actually all going to happy hour in a few weeks, which should be fun. So we're going to try to get together.
Okay, so Megan just talked about how right-at-home franchise owners are supporting one another. So I wanted to kind of talk about, Right at Home is a franchise, and we've got, close to 85 corporate employees here at the corporate headquarters here in Omaha, Nebraska, that our jobs are to help and support our franchise owners. So I want to take a minute to kind of talk about the support that you receive from Right at Home corporate. So something that Beau mentioned that maybe some of our listeners are a little confused about is that each franchise owner has an engagement team that they work with. The engagement team consists of a business performance coach, a business operations coordinator, and an online marketing specialist. So maybe, Megan, if you want to go first this time, to talk about the support that you receive from Right at Home corporate, and maybe kind of what's your favorite thing about, do you really utilize your coach, or is it an online marketing specialist? If you could pick one thing about the support that you really love, what would that be?
Yeah, absolutely. And first, I have to say that my decision to come in and take over my dad's business, if this wasn't a franchise and if it didn't have the support, that Right at Home provides, I don't know if I would have been able to do it. It would have been a lot harder. We actually got to come out to Omaha for 2 weeks, myself and my mom, and do the full training that every new business owner does. Even though we weren't a new business, they did offer that to us anyway. So just having that initial support and backing of a franchise, someone to ask questions to, that was completely invaluable, for us, and we're forever grateful. We're pretty close. We have a good relationship with our business performance coach, who's actually going to be coming out. What is it? Oh, we're almost in July. At the end of July, they're going to come visit and do a check-in with us. We do also talk to them regularly and routinely. I would say, more regularly, I do utilize the online marketing specialists a lot. They are a great resource to me. I don't have someone in my office who's dedicated to like digital. So that's kind of how I use Brandon and I use his team. I always have questions for them. I'm always trying to think about how can we do this better. And it's nice to have those expert resources that we can turn to right away, instead of trying to figure things out on my own. So, I do tap into corporate quite often for questions, for resources, for suggestions on, how we can do things better.
So I work with one of the business performance coaches was a former assisted living administrator. And so he is not my business performance coach, but I engage with him, I'd say at least quarterly. Although he did in a different state, I think I get a different perspective when I talk to him, and I like to hear things through his lens. I think it helps us on a sales and marketing side, also from a communication standpoint. A business performance coach is a former registered nurse, still a registered nurse. And so the value there is we do offer skilled nursing services in Alabama through Right at Home. And so I can talk about through her lens as a registered nurse and as we pursue private pay skilled nursing opportunities, as we went through Joint Commission accreditation, whatever it is, we can talk about the hospice lens. Since she used to work in hospice, we can talk about the hospital. We can talk about home health because she did that. So there's a lot of things that we can address. And then just as a whole, we meet with, I meet regularly with them. I'll meet with them every month. I've got a call after this with our, monthly one-on-one with the operations and business performance coach. So we try to have regular communication. And frankly, I don't mind asking for help. And so when it comes to home improvement, I'm always saying, hey, these are some things I would love to learn more about. Who's doing this well? And I'll send it to all the business performance coaches. Who do I need to meet? Who is a rising star? Who is somebody that has just entered the system that I need to meet? Who is a prospective franchisee that has just started, but we love a lot of the things that they're thinking or they're volunteering that they're going to try to apply into their business, implement. A lot of the folks that maybe have been around for a few years, they're maybe going out to nice dinners and having a couple, glasses of wine or whatever. That's not me. I'm looking for the young, hungry that's got the secrets and they got the nuggets. I'll let them ask all the questions they want to me, but I'm asking more back to them. So I think you get out of this what you ask for from a franchisor standpoint. And I think it would be remiss if I did not volunteer. You didn't ask the question, but I think during the pandemic, since March of 2020, I do think corporate support has been very strong. I think the communication is something they excelled at. They clearly have done everything that they wanted to try to do to try to come alongside franchisees. From the first time I had to make a phone call that a caregiver tested positive, she thought it was a death sentence. And talking her through that, she lived through it. She was okay. To calling the first clients, the whole dedicated COVID team, and the whole process of tracking folks and everything that they did. I had a call at 6 a.m. on a Saturday morning. There were some time zone differences on accident. They thought I was on a different time zone, but I was up anyway. So just having those conversations with corporate staff. So that is intended to be a compliment. I think they did the job very well done. I also am around people that are in other spaces whether it's in healthcare, they're the franchisee, or they're in other systems, and they did not get the support that we had. So for that, I'm very grateful.
Awesome. Same question from Megan, which was, I hate to bring it up, COVID, but just wanted you each to kind of talk about your experience through COVID and the support that Right at Home did provide during a very challenging time. So Megan, maybe just take a moment to talk about that. And Beau, anything else that you may want to add?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think all of us owners can agree that it was just like the hardest year. I mean, there's still some hard, we're getting through it. And I think we've all kind of learned to manage it at this point. But, you know, Right at Home was just always there for us. But I think even greater than having like our corporate resources, which are absolutely awesome, was just having each other and having this network and this community of other owners who are going through like exactly the same thing as you. I think there was a couple like Facebook groups started during that time that I was always keeping an eye on. I'm like, oh, who posted that? Who posted that? You know, someone would write a letter that they were going to send out to their clients and then share it with all of us. So we didn't have to all continue to recreate the wheel over and over. And then corporate would kind of take those things, put them together and say, here are some resources for you guys. So, you know, for me, that was incredibly invaluable. I don't know what I would have done without that support. And also just utilizing Littler was huge. All of those documents that just popped out of nowhere. Every week there was something new, just to help protect us from a legal perspective as well, because I don't think that was something that we were all prepared to manage like at all. So having that resource was really, really big. Not having to, like I said, recreate the wheel and come up with our own documents, our own language, our own verbiage, while we're also trying to manage all of these other issues like notifying clients about COVID, you know, checking in on caregivers, making sure that they're okay. I mean, the support was everything, and you know, we all got through it.
Awesome. And Beau, can you maybe take a minute to explain to us what the Littler Toolkit is?
Yeah, so the Littler Toolkit, they partnered with a couple law firms, and they pay for Right at Home franchisees. Corporate does to have access to legal documents. It is always recommended that you have somebody else in your local state to sign off on any of it to make sure you're within wage, labor, hour laws, or however you say that. I will say I did open up an additional office during the pandemic. I chose to move forward. I chose to open it. It was partly a result of The Last Dance, a Michael Jordan 10-part documentary that I watched. At that point, I think I was ready to conquer the world.
Yep.
But
amazing.
as Jen can attest, but I started this knowing what the pandemic, you know, starting that new journey with that new office in a very small town, in a very small market. And I knew what it was up against, and I knew, you know, what challenges it could bring, and there's less visibility for referral sources and for referrals and everything. And so I think even a year later, since I bought that territory and opened that office, and you know, I'm very pleased with how that business is. I'm pleased with the reputation, the visibility in the community, and I'm optimistic about, you know, where that will lead to. But the support was strong during the pandemic from, you know, all facets from the corporate standpoint.
Yep. Okay, so I'm pretty sure I already know the answer to this question. If you guys could identify, because we're right on the heels of talking about COVID, so if you guys could identify one of the most challenging times that you have had as a franchise owner, what would that be, and how did Right at Home corporate support you and help you through that? Do you want to go first, Megan?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, as I was thinking about some of our challenges, I think the greatest thing that comes to mind, obviously, was COVID. You know, for me, doing this for 4 years, that was a big stamp on these last 4 years. It was something really difficult and challenging to deal with. I would say, you know, just the first time we had to tell a family member that, you know, a caregiver had COVID, you know, could you imagine having to tell someone, oh, the person that I put to work with your grandma has COVID. Like, it was just absolutely horrifying. But we knew we had to just have those conversations and continue to be open and honest and transparent. And we did consult corporate before having those first initial conversations. I mean, it got to the point where we couldn't do it every single time. But I remember the first couple times, like, emailing and saying, okay, here's what happened. Here's what we know. What should we do? We got that guidance. And then we just continued to use that throughout, all of those difficult conversations that we had to have. So, they were there to hold our hand at first. And I think kind of we had to fly on our own and just continue to figure out, but always knowing that they were in the background just in case we had to consult them again.
Sure. Thanks, Megan. How about you?
Yeah, honestly, I don't know that there is a single low in it or a single point. There were low moments, and there were moments that there was strong support. And so I don't know of a single instance, because if I name one, I'd name 5 more probably.
Yeah. So, and then to give our listeners some background of kind of what we were going through here at the corporate level when COVID first hit. So Beau mentioned he had a Saturday morning 6 a.m. phone call with somebody from corporate. Here at the corporate level, we were meeting 7 days a week, twice every day, Monday through Friday, and on the weekends, just because things were constantly changing. Regular communication with our franchisees is, constant emails. We've got a CRM where our franchisees have access to, where we constantly post updates and information. But prior to COVID, we would have quarterly, town hall meetings. These town hall meetings went to a cadence of once a week. And I want to say even at the beginning of COVID, it was multiple times a week, where all of our franchise owners dialed into a Zoom call where we would have updates on what was going on and what the new materials that we have out there to help and support our franchise owners. A new process, a new procedure. Things were constantly changing. So we were working around the clock to help and support our franchise owners because they come first. So thanks to both of you for doing everything that you did through COVID, because it was a very, very challenging time. So let's back up a little bit to when you first became a Right at Home franchise owner. So for our listeners, there are some fears with, buying a business and a lot of uncertainty and no guarantees and things like that. So maybe just give us an idea of some of the fears that you had when you first became a franchise owner, some of the things that you were scared about, worried about, and how you overcame those fears.
I should probably answer that first. So, I mean, even on day one, 10 years ago, it was 2 phone lines and a fax was $400 a month. $1,000 a month in rent, another $150 in a water bill. I'm like, we don't even flush the toilets that many times a month. If we paid $1 per flush, it was less than 150. So I just there was a little bit of anxiety just in the beginning when you look at some of the costs of doing business just in general. Like, you look at it and it's like, what? But it became, this is hard. Nothing was easy. Nothing was easy for any business or any organization, any operation. And that's what made, when we saw light, when we saw hope, we felt like, this was the right place for us. And so really quickly, even with a startup, I would say I was like 12, 14 months into the business, I decided to buy 3 more territories. So the rights to another market 2 hours away, plus a second territory in this market, plus a second territory in that market. And so I realized very quickly this was the right space for me. This was a good fit. And I overcame those fears. And not only that, but reinvested in what I'd already invested blood, sweat, and tears into at that point. So there was definitely some anxiety, but I felt like, again, as the former athlete in me, I could outwork the local competition. Like, I dare you to think you can outwork us and Right at Home. And I don't have neighbors like Megan does. My closest neighbor, I have one neighbor, and that neighbor is 75 miles away. So there's 0 overlap. That neighbor is south. I operate west and north of where I sit in Birmingham. So I don't share a lot that may be a large metropolitan area that has a dozen, say, territories in it or whatever, or a dozen owners.
Yep.
Megan, if you want to go ahead, or Jen, if you have a follow-up question to that.
Oh, go ahead, Megan.
Yeah, so I think, I had a lot of fears as well. Luckily, I was in a position where I kind of just thought, well, let me come in and take this over. And if it's not working out, we did have an existing business that would have been available to resell if necessary. But I did really want to make it work. I think one of the biggest things that went through my head is like, what makes me an expert in home care? Why is anyone going to think that I'm credible and actually know what I'm doing? I'm like, this is crazy. With a background in PR and marketing, it has nothing to do with home care. I don't even have a business degree. So I think I was like, are people going to take me seriously and trust me and want to work with me? But I quickly discovered it's not about what you know necessarily. I mean, sorry.
And so to that point, you learn as you go, but I think at the end of the day, we've got to have the heart and we've got to want to make a difference. We've got to want to help that family, even if that includes never sending them a bill. And so to build off of Megan, as long as you go in there and you say, I may not have the answers for some of your questions, but I want you to have the best, whatever that looks like. Alabama is not a licensed state. So the question I had to ask myself is, am I willing to go take care of this elderly person in the event that we can't fill a shift or we have somebody that isn't able to be there? Am I willing to go do it myself? Am I willing to go pick up a person and take them to this job? If I'm willing to do these things, then I think I'm going to be fine. And I am. I'm willing to pick people up. I'm willing to work shifts still to this day. And caregivers have my cell phone number. Families have my cell phone number. Referral sources have my cell phone number. It's the same number my wife calls me on.
Awesome. Okay, so I am looking at my list of topics that I wanted to make sure that I cover here. I only have a few left. I just want to remind our listeners that you still have an opportunity to ask a question. If anything is top of mind, go ahead and type that into the question box. I'll make sure that it's answered before we part ways here. So next topic here that I want to cover, everybody makes mistakes. Nobody's perfect. So when you first became a franchise owner, what are some of the things that you did then that you're like, oh my gosh, I should have done that completely differently? Now that I am the franchise owner that I am years later, look back to the very beginning. What are some of the things that you would have done differently if you could?
I can answer that very quickly. Fire a client if needed sooner. I'll never forget 8 hours a day, 7 days a week. Guys, that's 56 hours. We needed the 56 billable hours. I needed that time. But that client's spouse hijacked my time all the time. I need you to come over here right now. I need you to come over here right now. I finally said, here's notice. We're giving you this much runway. We're going to go another direction. And it blew their mind, but I did that. Within 2.5 weeks, we picked up 300 new hours. It more than covered up the 56 hours that had been hijacking my time. If a client isn't a good fit, hey, we got to both go our separate directions in the relationship sooner.
Awesome. That's a great answer. How about you, Megan?
I agree with that 100%. You have to establish boundaries and really stand by them and understand that, this isn't going to be the last client that's ever going to come through the door. There will be others, but you have to take clients that are a good fit for your business as well. It has to be a mutual relationship for sure. It can't just go one way. I also think at first when I took over the business, I remember I'd give like everyone my cell phone number. And Beau, I'm totally like you. I'm willing to share. I have caregivers call me, certain clients call me, but I realized I do have to use discretion and establish boundaries in order to protect my own energy, because this business can be 24/7. So now, I think a little bit more carefully before I communicate with people in certain ways, and I can always just route them through the office if that's what we need to do.
Okay, awesome. That's a great answer, you guys. I am going to shift gears a little bit. There's one topic that I didn't cover that I wanted to cover earlier. So let's talk a little bit about strategic partnerships and referral partnerships, and maybe some of the partnerships that you guys utilize as franchise owners that Right at Home Corporate has set up for you guys on a national basis. Can you comment on that, Bo?
Yeah, so there are a couple of the home health partnerships. We have strong relationships. It comes down to the local level. And so we have built on what was a solid relationship, and we turned it into an even better relationship with those announcements. So we were able to build on those and grow. Our best relationships were on the home health side that corporate has presented, but there are a number of other partnerships that we've benefited from that are a little bit more obscure than just that general 30,000 foot home health kind of partnerships.
Awesome. How about you, Megan?
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, we definitely pursue every partnership that Right at Home presents to us. I've gotten phone calls saying, hey, we're a partner of Right at Home, like, let's get together. And then I'll reach out to corporate, obviously, to verify before we take those next steps. But it is nice to have all of those relationships that are established for us to kind of give us grounds to meet with people and continue connecting. Some of them, are more relevant depending on where you are, like regionally, but the ones that are local to us, we certainly do connect with those partners for sure. I think the hospice for us has probably been the ones that we've connected with the most, like Kindred. We did a couple of cases with them. So.
Okay. So I am looking at my list of topics here, and I just have one final comment here. I'm watching the question box. I haven't seen any questions come in yet. So just kind of to wrap things up here, a couple things, kind of two questions in one here. So if you could give one piece of advice to our listeners, if they're thinking about becoming franchise owners, what would that be? And is there anything that we didn't talk about today that I didn't bring up that you would like to make sure that our listeners know about before we hang up here?
I would say, as long as you're not going to operate a business outside of Right at Home, within 100 miles of where I'm located, come spend a day with me. Pay your way, get a hotel room. I don't know what it's going to look like, but I'm going to pick you up at 6 a.m. from your hotel, and I will promptly take you home at 6 p.m. And you'll see the life of me, whatever that looks like, and I will not have anything on the books. We'll just respond to whatever happens that day. We'll do some cold calling. We'll probably do an assessment or two. I'll probably have some kind of fire that I'll have on speakerphone so that you can hear it. I've had a few people that are franchisees have done this, and they've taken me up on that. So I would say, come on. If you're serious, come see me.
Awesome.
Is this an invitation for me, or?
You can come too. You already know all this stuff.
No, I think that's great advice. Definitely use your resources, rely on the support from the other Right at Home franchisees, the support from corporate. I think that is super, super important. You can learn a lot really, really quickly, which is something that I learned here. And then going back to something Bo was talking about a little bit before, I think just having the right team, the right staff around you is so important. Being a good leader and teaching them to lead the way that you do. You got to have people around you to do this. It's challenging, but it's extremely rewarding. There's a lot of moving parts, a lot of logistics. You need a team and people you can trust.
And to build on that, in our performance group, a prime example of, just looking out after each other, collaborating with each other, when one owner who paid a sizable sum of money for an existing business, he had his best friend come in and help run the thing. I mean, the best friend didn't have any equity. He was paying his best friend a lot of money. And frankly, we didn't see the value of his best friend. And before we left that face-to-face meeting, he agreed he was going to go back and he was going to have a conversation and let his best friend that he had spent his entire 20 or 25 year career in banking, now working for the Right at Home, he was going to let him go. And that wasn't an easy conversation. This is a real emotional, it's a financial, it's a lot of different tentacles when you unpack the way those two had worked together over this amount of time. But having the ability for him to put all the cards on the table, for us to unpack and uncover in a face-to-face meeting, that is a problem, and him to go back and take action on it, that's where you see the difference in bright owners, people that are willing to invest in each other. I talked about a scattering report. My performance group, I know their businesses inside and out. I know the people that work in their offices. I've buddy audited them. I've gone to their offices. I've interviewed their staff. I've given them feedback on what they look like. These are blinders. It might be as simple as fixing the light bulb above her desk. It might be as simple as get them a second monitor so that they have two monitors to look at. It's been serious stuff. She needs more training. She wants more confidence. She wants a list of definitions of healthcare terms so that she makes sure that she knows that what she's saying is true. She's just heard it and fake it till you make it kind of thing. So I say all that to say, those buddy audits are great. That's really good. You would do that, and you can do that in any business. But the beauty of Right at Home, especially, is there is a level of intelligent owners. I just work really hard. I'm not really that smart, but the other people around me are really smart. And so I want to go and learn from them. And I would encourage these prospective franchisees, if they were to move forward, take advantage of the people and the system that exists.
Yes. Awesome. Okay. Thank you to both of you, Beau, Meghan. Thank you so much. I thought this conversation was awesome. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. Hopefully our listeners enjoyed it. There are going to be some people that are going to be listening to this on a recorded basis. So thank you to those who are listening to this recording. But thanks again so much, you guys. This has been awesome. Hopefully we can do this again. And thanks to everybody who has dialed in this afternoon to listen. We appreciate you as well. Okay.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye, you guys.